Good afternoon. I'm David Zier, coming to you from the America First Warehouse. You're listening and watching to On the Right Side podcast at the America First Warehouse, just outside of New York City. Incredible events here. A lot of great people at the America First Warehouse. Go to the AmericaFirstWarehouse.com and check it out. Again, I'm David Zier with Real America's Voice News. I just got back from Minneapolis a couple of days ago. Down there since the day after the shooting of Renee Good, in the neighborhoods, talking to the people in the protest at night, getting out of control, surrounding hotels, breaking down doors, trying to enter hotels where ICE was in, hotel operators refusing ICE and government people to stay in their hotels. Another hotel had its windows broken. Powderhorn Park on Saturday, a few blocks from where George Floyd died, a few blocks from where Renee Good's shooting. This is the epicenter, hotbed in America right now of the civil unrest and the protest movement. But as Ben Bergquam always shares with me,
the assets, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
No, we're good. We're good.
So, as Ben Bergquam tells me, Minnesota has the most radical. And I've been covering protests for a long time, been in protests, participating on the other side, but around protests, mostly from the left for many decades. And my early interactions with ICE were that they were animals, would spit on us, telling us we brought disease blankets from Europe, along with BLM, we're the white invaders and all this stuff. Meanwhile, we had black people with us, never got that one. Angry white woman. Angry white women, the theme of the day out there. They're in force. And I've seen the protests organized. I covered the ICE protests in New York City last year. And the police were finally able to take off their gloves with Jessica Tisch under Adams running again for mayor at the time. And I got bounced around a little bit in there. They got violent. But kids, mostly white girls from suburbia, from McMansions, go to these colleges and become liberals. It's a combination of bad parenting, radical left professors, a pop culture, instant gratification. They're reading crap in the schools, and the kids who aren't in school aren't reading. So the Minneapolis School District was encouraging kids to walk out, saying they're not safe in their schools from ICE. When I was there, 100+ elementary kids walked out of a school. They're brainwashing and teaching 6, 8, and 10-year-olds to hate their country. And this is a product of Steve Bannon's Generation Zero, the great movie that he made about 15 years ago. And I remember going to the premiere with that with Lou Dobbs, and it was a spectacular movie about how the post-World War II generation had kids and then spoiled them, who became the hippies in the 60s. And now they're running our government in Wall Street and Hollywood and our leadership and our school unions. And they're giving kids litter boxes in the bathroom so the furries can take a leak in a litter box. They've lost their way. They've lost their way. And what's going on in Minnesota is very organized. The most organized that I've seen in a long time, or maybe ever. These protests not only started in the 60s, but remember the World Trade Organization under the second Bush, and they grew from there, right? This is going on a long time. Hands up, don't shoot, the Ferguson lie. That kid could have been my son, George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, Obama saying that kid could have been my son. Well, if your son gets high on watermelon fruit juice cocktail and cough syrup, and then smokes weed every minute of his life. At 16 years old, and steals jewelry, and was in a complex about to rob more units, and then confronted George Zimmerman, who was doing his community patrol, then you failed as a parent. And, but it's bigger than that, because kids are doing this stuff anyway without their parents, so I'll strike that from the record. Kids are, the nanny state has taken over your children, learning about sex in schools at 5 years old, learning about gay sex in schools at 5 years old. Parents powerless to get rid of the books. Parents powerless to stop the grooming by teachers in the schools. So this all leads to Minnesota, the Immigrant Defense Network, Indivisible, Indivisible Twin Cities, Facebook, Minnesota protests. Go to the website. You can find out about all the great websites. Next week, there's a website. There's a protest on MLK Day. Free Sudan, free Congo, free Venezuela, free Palestine. White people are evil, and avenge Renee Good's death. That, I swear, that's what's in this protest. It's not just the one thing about the ICE. It's all these things, and I'll talk about the flyer later in the show. But Jimmy Kimmel featured me on his show last night. We live streamed from the protest in Powderhorn Park, a few blocks from George Floyd and Renee Good's incidents. 20 to 30,000 people came out, not one cop on the ground that I saw. We walked for 3 miles in that park. No cops, drones and a chopper, but the police want the civil unrest in Minneapolis because the Minneapolis police chief is a political pawn, and he hates ICE, and he's all over media bashing ICE that they're not trained law enforcement, and they're not qualified to do this job. But they're federal agents. They're federal agents. Is it an insurrection not to cooperate with the federal government? I thought that was the theme of the day under Biden. These people, they're not cooperating with ICE. In Seattle, in Portland, in Chicago, parts of New York, Minneapolis, an illegal alien gets arrested for committing a crime here, even a violent crime, they plead the charges down. They give them lesser charges so it doesn't look like they're as serious. Then they let them out the back door, back in their community. They're not holding them for ICE to come. And that's why we have this violence in the street. Because the average person doesn't want ICE in their neighborhood. And I can understand that. Your kids are playing outside. You don't want confrontation in your neighborhood. If local law enforcement cooperated more, there would be much less of this. 7 out of 10 of the people rounded up under ICE and being deported committed crimes or additional crimes, from what I'm told, in the United States, in addition to breaking law by coming in here. But remember, maybe 10 million came in under Biden and were invited in here. So if they want to make the case that they're not breaking the law by being here, okay, I'll give you that for 5 minutes to hold on to. Okay? Just hold on to that. But you commit another crime while you're here? Or you committed a heinous crime before you came in the United States and you came here to hide? You're not supposed to be rounded up and deported? So that's what's going on in Minneapolis. And during this protest in the park, I tried to have an intelligent conversation with the people on the ground there, and it was impossible. I had one for about a minute, but others jump in front of the way. The angry white woman jumps in front of the camera and tells the people who are answering the question, don't answer him. He's right-wing media. He's a Nazi. He's a fascist. F him. And they stop blowing their ice whistles, right? And they all gather around like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Point-to-point navigation, pointing us out along our 2-mile walk, even leaving the park. They got violent with us. 1,000 people tracking us and following us like lions do on the Serengeti. And it got really bad, and it got violent. I was with Nick Sorta that day, and we decided to put a cap on it. And the next day, Nick Sorta went out to the federal facility, and he got assaulted. And his truck. They tried to break our windows like they broke the windows on Nick Sorta truck. We had to do an escape from New York exit from Powderhorn Park to get out of there. Our security about to draw their weapons and pulling out their guns. And it was awful. And all I was doing was asking them their opinions about what was going on. They don't know who I was. A few did. But they just start screaming and yelling at you and harassing you. But I got more. Because my cameraman and I were assaulted eating a hamburger, and we had the Real America's Voice News logo on our jackets. And we didn't say anything or do anything, and we weren't in there for more than 5 seconds. And my cameraman got a drink thrown in his face by some ring-nosed wildebeest, a mom in front of 2 or 3 children and her wimp husband, and runs out of the restaurant, leaving her kids inside with the husband. I'll tell you all about that when we come back. You're watching On the Right Side with David Zier. You're watching Real America's Voice. You're watching On the Right Side. I'm with Real America's Voice News. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be right back.
Most people think they have options when searching for the best deals when they travel. But here's the shocking truth. 100% of the major travel agencies are owned by just 2 entities, Expedia and Booking Holdings. They claim to offer the lowest rates, but due to the hotel rate parity agreement, they all have the same pricing, limiting genuine competition. When you book through these sites, you act as your own travel agent, but the profits are going to organizations that don't support our patriot values. We cannot allow that to continue. So, we decided to make travel great again by starting a US-based travel membership platform, mypatriottravel.com. We are patriots helping patriots. Together, we can disrupt the travel industry by not spending our hard-earned dollars supporting the radical left. For just $29.99 per month, you gain access to true wholesale rates on travel, saving you on average 35% and up to 65%. Book as often as you like, with no limits. Keep your hard-earned dollars in your pocket and spend them on things you need and want to support. Go to mypatriottravel.com/TAFW and grab your membership today. mypatriottravel.com/TAFW, making travel great again.
Are you a true American? Then it's time to get connected. Download the America First Media and Television app and stay up to date with real news, bold voices, and live events from the America First Warehouse. From national broadcasts and exclusive shows to comedy nights, concerts, and special events. It's all right at your fingertips. No filters, no spin, just America First. Download the America First Media and Television app today and be part of the movement.
I'm sure you guys remember the platinum single, Justice for All, with Donald Trump and the J6 Prison Choir. Well, get ready for round 2. We're coming out with Anthem of the Free with High Res and the J6 Prison Choir. It's coming out now. It's pre-sale until December 19th when it drops. Get yours on all platforms, Google Play, Apple iTunes. Get it. It's going to be hot.
Justice for all voices ring. The anthem of the free.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse, most patriotic venue in all the land.
The America First Warehouse, a beacon for the sea, a symbol of unity. For the patriots of America, we stand tall and free. In the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
Side at the America First Warehouse. Go to the AmericaFirstWarehouse.com. A special thanks to Joe the Box, all the great people here and the crew in the production booth. putting this show together every week so we can get the message out. I am David Zier with Real America's Voice News and the host of Breaking Point, a field correspondent. I've been to almost 40 states with the network over the last 7 years. Next 2 weeks from now will be 7 weeks with the 7 years with the network. It's been an incredible bull run, from following the Trump camp on the campaign, being on the ground at the White House, the Pentagon, Capitol Hill, going to all these states, doing thousands of interviews, man on the street with real people suffering under the calamitous COVID era, and the Democrats. It's been a whirlwind, and it's been an education, because I've been in business here for 40 years or so, 38 years. And New York, in a tough place. I saw the tanks in the street in Moscow in 1986. The food lines, the bread lines, the shoe lines in Moscow when it was still communist. People here don't get it. They think it's great that the government's involved in your life, and it's not great. It's got to be limited. And they should be there to keep your lights on and your roads clean and pick up your garbage, you know? Protect you from violent people. That's what they're there for. Not to brainwash your kids in school. Not to tell them it's okay to be gay at 5 years old when kids can't even make up their mind on tying their shoelaces. So let's go back to Minnesota, on the ground there for several days, witnessing the protest, interviewing people at the protest, angry white women galore. We're in a restaurant. We covered Scott Bessent for 3 days there. I was around Scott for 2 of those days in Minnesota, there to investigate Somali fraud. And the Treasury Secretary laying out the president's plan with permanent tax cuts to get businesses to expand and capital expenditures back into their business so they can build and expand and take risks and employ people. And the economy is going to take off like a rocket ship this year. I don't know if it happens in time. I don't know if it happens in time for the midterms. The last 130 poll releases have the Democrats winning the House by a decent margin. It's going to be rough. And if it goes Democrat, Trump's last 2 years are going to be hell. So we have to work on that. But what's going on in Minnesota, and it's 10 degrees outside with the wind chill, is what's going to happen nationwide this summer. Because they couldn't burn everything down because everything was frozen and wet, right? They still got 5% of the Minneapolis population out for protest, 3%, whatever number you want to throw at it. It was a lot of people, and not everybody's paid. And we know Indivisible got $7.8 million from Soros. Some estimates put the funding for Indivisible up to $250 million. Indivisible Twin Cities, the Immigrant Defense Network, the other groups that were on the ground in Minnesota, getting our kids to leave school, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, thinking they know what's right for America. Told they're living in fear that ICE is going to kick in the doors of the schools and throw tear gas in there, because there was a chase on the ground of somebody who was a U.S. citizen who started an incident with ICE, and it was a 5-mile chase. And it ended up the Wednesday before last in front of a school. Last Wednesday, a day after Renee Good was shot. And I think they arrested the guy and were chasing him on the school property. But the lie got spun and told that ICE was coming in the schools and tying up people and tear gassing them. And kids walked out of school. And then they canceled classes on Friday so the kids could stay home and protest. You know? So we're leaving Scott Bessent. We're at the Cambria Industrial Facility, manufacturers, 1.5 million or so feet of a quartz factory that make quartz countertops and floors. Incredible product, beautiful factory, automated, many employees too. Salt of the earth, Minnesota nice. Not like Minneapolis, but Minnesota nice. Because some of the nicest people in the world are in the Midwest. So we're leaving that event and we stopped by for a hamburger before going out into Minneapolis. And we're in the restaurant for 5 seconds, and I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and some ring-nosed, I don't know what you want to call her. She looked like a man, but she had children with her, I think 3. Her husband, a wimpy husband, sitting at the bar with her, a high top on the side of the bar. And she's calling my cameraman Nazi, fascist, losing a gasket because of the logo on his jacket. Now, he didn't say anything to her. We never say anything. We would never do anything to disrespect the network in public, right? So I come back, and she turns her focus on me and starts yelling at me. And then I turn my back, and she comes around the table and hip checks me and squeezes by me with her fat ass. I'm overweight, but she was a fat ass. Comes around the table and throws a whole drink of Fireball in my cameraman's face. And storms out of the restaurant. Leaves her kids in there. Mother of the Year, table for 2. I mean, come on. They're crazy. They're animals. They're unhinged. They're not capable of having an intelligent conversation. Because I was on the ground in the Renee Goods neighborhood. It was about 15 degrees. It was rainy and sleety. And the paid agitators left. They built a MAZ, like a Chaz, a Minneapolis Autonomous Zone. The streets on Portland Avenue between 33rd and 34th Streets in Minneapolis, 2 blocks from where George Floyd died, who probably died from an overdose. But let's stick on the issues. And the residents in the area were around barrels with wood in them, and they lit fires. I think those blockades that they made, they even used a Christmas tree as part of their blockade, wood pallets. I think they were removed by ICE the next day on Friday. But I engaged the people that were locals. And I had about a half-hour conversation with them, and I aired about 7 minutes of it on my show. Go to Real America's Voice News. Go to americasvoice.news or realamericasvoice.news, and go to the show tab and watch last Saturday's Breaking Point. And I engaged in a civil dialogue with these people when they don't have people in their face, you know, blowing whistles and cursing and just being animals dressed up like a furry. We talked. We spoke. Now, were they uninformed? Yes. Do they hate what America's all about? In a way. One woman, a Somali immigrant, lived around the corner, was out, very upset about the shooting and the disruption in her neighborhood, but completely failed to recognize Renee Goods' motives here. She was a professional agitator. She put herself in this situation. And where's the video of the wife, right? Her wife. And I think when all this comes out and the FBI investigation wraps up, depending on who's in office, could be whether or not there's charges against this ICE officer who was dragged in the year prior, almost lost his life, got 33 stitches by a sexual predator dragged alongside his car. Their car. Probably said to himself, I'm not going to let this happen again, and I'm not getting run over today, and pulled the trigger. She knew what she was doing. She had kids at home. She knew what she was doing. I don't know any moms of 2 or 3 kids that are out interfering with federal law enforcement. But these people didn't know. But they did recognize that America is better, because I said, you know, we don't see people, you know, like, why did you come here? If it's so bad here, why did you come? Oh, we came here for the opportunity. But what's going on, now Somalis, I'm going to get back into this when we come back from the break, because I want to talk about the Somali network. There's only about 250,000 Somalis in the United States. They're less than 0.1% of the population. So I'm told. It's not a big population. And some of them are allies to the United States. who fought against Mohammed Farad Ardid, who was educated in the United States, who was the general the warlord we were going after in the movie Black Hawk Down. And a lot of Muslims, Somali Muslims, and I'll give you an example when we come back, fought against Farad Ardid and lost their lives, and their families fled to Kenya and came to the United States. And they love Charlie Kirk, and they love Donald Trump. And almost 30% of Islam or Muslims in the United States voted for Trump in the last election. So you got to be really careful how we approach this. And we can't castigate everybody as bad. But the Somali fraud, $700 million coming out of the Minneapolis airport in $1 million plus increments, that went back to Somalia, that went to the surrounding countries in Africa, that went to the Middle East, maybe funding al-Shabaab, is why we were with Scott Bessent. I want to talk about Scott Bessent when we come back, because he's got an incredible economic plan with Trump. We also went to a high school with Scott Bessent, a Catholic school, where he taught kids the importance of fiscal responsibility and saving money and investing at an early age, and explained to them how much their returns could be when they were 38. Damn, if I had somebody like that in my life when I was 17 or 18 telling me to do that, I wouldn't be driving a Hyundai right now. Anyway, I have a nice Hyundai. I have a Palisade. All right, we'll be right back. I'm David Zier. You're watching On the Right Side, the America First Warehouse. Don't go anywhere. Go to America First WH on X. Download the Real America, America First Warehouse new app. Go online, check it out. We'll be right back.
Have you noticed your money just doesn't stretch like it used to? Your paycheck feels lighter, and your savings aren't growing. The culprits? Inflation and increased money supply. They've both been quietly eating away at your purchasing power for years. Today, the dollar's value has dropped significantly. You feel it every time you spend money on goods and services. Back in 1965, $1 or an ounce of silver could buy you a gallon of milk. Fast forward to today. That same dollar barely buys a couple of coffee creamers, while an ounce of silver would get you 8 gallons of milk. Gold and silver have held their value for centuries. If you had 2,500 ounces of silver back in 1965, you could buy a brand new Ford Mustang. Today, 2,500 ounces of silver would buy you 2 Mustangs. Similarly, in the year 2000, 628 ounces of gold would buy a new $170,000 home. Today, 628 ounces would buy you a $2,500,000 home. The problem? 95% of Americans don't own physical gold or silver. They think it's too complicated and too expensive, but it doesn't have to be. We offer a membership program that allows you to buy gold or silver with as little as $1. You can buy fractional amounts, safely vault them, or have them delivered to your doorstep, and you can liquidate them whenever you want at the highest buyback price in the industry. Ready to protect your wealth and keep your purchasing power? Scan the QR code or go to tafw.soundmoney.com to learn more.
If the vote count is accurate, then how come the number of voters is different? And if it's not accurate, then why was it certified? We are suing Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections for a conspiracy against fundamental rights. This is not about who won. It's not about what party. It's about the fact that they don't care about your rights.
All right, live from Studio 6B on a Friday night, live at the America First Warehouse. Live at the America First Warehouse on a Friday, Real America's Voice, all across the country, 103.9 LI News Radio, all across your radio, Suffolk County, Long Island. Glad you're in.
It's me, Joe the Box. And I'm John the Blanket with the America First Podcast.
That's what I'm talking about. The Fred Rubino Podcast.
I'm James Justice. We got Stephen Ruth over here. What are we doing, Steve? Fighting!
Welcome to the Patriots Podcast. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the On the Right Side podcast here at the America First Warehouse.
Welcome to Liberty's Cage, the podcast tearing down the walls of America's broken justice system.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Downey Jr. Podcast. Be free, stay free.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're watching On the Right Side, our weekly podcast. We are live on X. Go to America First WH on X. And thank you to the America First Warehouse. I'm David Zier with Real America's Voice News on the ground across the country. Just got back from Minnesota. What's going on there is it's surreal. It is surreal. The local government and the police want civil unrest. Minnesota filed a federal lawsuit the other day, Operation Metro Surge, because of the increased ICE presence in DHS in the Twin Cities. They're saying the federal operation violates the 10th Amendment, overriding Minnesota's authority, and says the increase is, in essence, a federal invasion of the Twin Cities. You'll probably get some federal judge to rule against Trump on that, maybe finding its way to the Supreme Court. I don't know where the National Guard situation stands because Tim Walz, under Title 32, I believe, has the right to call in his own National Guard, state National Guard. But the feds also have the power to do that under Title 10. So I don't know what that's going to look like going forward. I'm going to investigate that. But I spent the afternoon with Nick Sorter on Saturday in the park. We decided to pack it in. We didn't go out on Sunday to the federal facility, and we flew home to cover other stuff. Nick Sorter was assaulted on the ground. That next night, they broke the windows to his car, had to make an escape from New York-style getaway, or it could have worked out much worse for them. You know, it only takes a chunk of snow and ice to come through the window to kill somebody, like they tried to with us. A big ice chunk came, hit the passenger side window. If that would have went through, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. Our security about to draw their weapons and get out. We were surrounded by 100 people, 200 people, tracked by a couple of thousand people at the protest in high-tech communications via handheld radio, along with their stupid ice whistles, because they can't speak for themselves. They have to shout you down and spit on you and push you and get in your face because their parents never smacked them around. You know, really incredible. But Bessent was on the ground investigating Somali fraud. And he's going to get to the bottom of this because he's also the acting IRS commissioner, which is pretty incredible. And this fraud may be up to $9 billion now, the Feeding Our Future fraud scandal involving public program money runs really deep. And how much went back in the hands of the politicians. And I've been in politics for 40 years. Congressmen didn't get rich like they're getting rich now. You know, when I got into politics, they either had money already or they were a lawyer, you know, made money already. Maybe came out a little wealthier than they were. You know, they get incredible pensions. They're still allowed to make money outside of Congress. Blind trust, whatever other games that get played. But now, Ilhan Omar, worth $37,000 6, 7 years ago, now is worth $30 million. I mean, come on. Some of the fastest growing cities in Africa, in Somalia, probably with U.S. taxpayer money. But Bessent was on the ground here, and we were filming and covering a roundtable where people were sharing their stories of Somali fraud. I think this is going to really blow up. And then we followed Scott Bessent to the Economic Club of Minnesota, which was really great, you know, because he was talking about the Tax Act and the big, beautiful bill and expanding the pocketbooks for permanent tax cuts of American workers and families. The Trump accounts. How incredible is this? Trump should get a prize just for that. If you put $1,000 into the S&P 500, by the time your child's 37 years old, it's worth like $800,000 based on past performance. I mean, how incredible is that? And you can match that, and you can put more money from yourself, like a Columbia 529 fund. I mean, this is brilliant. Fostering Main Street revivals through capital expenditures, because taxes will be less. Permanent tax cuts are setting in. There's going to be an R&D boom, and companies will be able to reinvest through CapEx back into their businesses. More jobs for Americans. How many tens of thousands of lives has Trump saved already at the border? Fentanyl crawling through now, right? Still coming. A lot less. How many lives did Trump save already in 2025? Is it 30,000? Is it 60,000? I was up in Manchester, New Hampshire. I covered the primaries up there in 2020, 2024. They had the highest overdose rate per capita in the United States. 100,000 people in the city of Manchester, 8% of them overdose every year. They were a combination of morphine, synthetic morphine, fentanyl, crystal meth, coke. People are dying. But what's the real rate now? And then crime is down 12, 14% nationwide. Murder's down. It's already trending down a little in 2024. But did Trump save 20, 30, 50,000 lives this year in the United States? And how many will he have saved by the end of his second term? Is it 150? Is it 300,000? Prove me wrong, the left. Tell me how that isn't true. You know? So, this new tax plan and the new Trump stuff is really great. Scott Bessent warning. Take your kid's stupid degree that they got. And I know, because I paid for 72 years of college and Catholic school. For degrees, my kids are not working in the fields they went to school for. None of them. None of the four right now. Learn AI. 55,000 jobs lost because of AI, supposedly, last year in the United States. 6% unemployment rate for recent college grads. Saddled with debt until they're 35 years old. Because even though we've paid out $500,000 or $600,000 in cash for our kids' education, they still had to take their own loans on top of it. And the schools just raised their tuition because more money was coming from the government in the student loan form. It should have been capped. Any college that takes federal money, it should be capped. 1% increase per year for tuition. How about that? So, this new tax plan is really incredible. And you're going to see people start selling their homes finally, who locked in at 2% and 3% 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Because now there's a move-up market for them. Because now they can go get the $850,000 house in Charleston, South Carolina, if they're living in Maryland or Delaware or parts of New York that they locked in. Because maybe they can get a mortgage now, maybe by August of this upcoming year for 5%. It's reasonable. It's reasonable. And it'll free up inventory for the buyers underneath them who are renting and stuck, whose housing costs have doubled since 2021. The average age of home ownership is 59. It used to be 31 in 1981. So we're going to see a renaissance in this country, an economic boom. $19 trillion back in manufacturing in the United States coming. But will it be fast enough for the midterms? I'm not so sure about that. And if the midterms go blue, we have a big problem on our hands here. We have a big problem going forward if that's the case. But these protests are all related going on. No kings, pro-Maduro, get out of Venezuela, protest leaders like Edwin Torres de Santiago, who heads up the Immigrant Defense Network. It's an umbrella group for more than 90 nonprofits and religious groups working to protect the rights of immigrants. How about the church? How about Catholic Charities? As a Catholic, I'm disgusted. What about the Methodist? Has a schism in there. There's one part of the Methodist Church. They're all about, LGBTQA and sanctuary policy. The worst. What about the Lutheran Church? I grew up going to a Lutheran church. I loved the Lutheran Church. It was warmer than the Catholic Church. Catholics grew up afraid. Vatican II. My mother left the Catholic Church because of Vatican II. In the 60s, you still had corporal punishment. They could beat you in the schools. But I sent all my kids to Catholic school. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because we didn't have to deal with this crap. Because we knew the Catholic Church had liberation theology and had a Marxist bent and the vow of poverty and all that. But they knew the parents weren't going to send their kids to school when they were out busting their ass, working for a utility, making $60,000 a year and spending $3,000 or $5,000 of it at the time to send their kids to Catholic school. Because they would have jacked the kid up when they came home. It's a different world today. But these NGOs, Jaylen Hussein from the Council for American Islamic Relations spoke at the vigil for Renee Good in Minneapolis right before we got there. Nakima Levy-Armstrong from the Racial Justice Network on the ground in Minnesota. This is all a highly coordinated effort. But regular people are coming to the protest. They're not all paid. There's tens of thousands of other protesters that are not paid probably. But they're all brainwashed and they're selfish. And they just want to sit in their basements and smoke weed all day or whatever. Hey, if you smoke weed, whatever, it's fine. But we have a bunch of mind-numbed robots in our country right now who can't think for themselves. I'm David Zier, Real America's Voice News. We're at the America First Warehouse. We'll be right back.
You've worked hard and saved, but inflation and increased money supply are eroding your buying power. Protect and grow your wealth with physical gold and silver. Sound Money. With a Sound Money wallet, your wealth stays in your control. Buy fractionally, vault securely, ship directly, and instantly liquidate your gold and silver at the highest buyback price in the industry. Real money, real ownership. Visit tafwsoundmoney.info or scan the QR code and start securing your financial future today.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
Live from Studio 6B on a Friday night, live at the America First Warehouse. Live at the America First Warehouse on a Friday, Real America's Voice, all across the country, 103.9 LI News Radio, all across your radio, Suffolk County, Long Island. Glad you're in.
Corporate transfer. Fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
Welcome back. David Zier for Real America's Voice News here on the right side, weekly podcast at the America First Warehouse. Shout out to Joe the Box. Go to the AmericaFirstWarehouse.com. Thank you, everybody, for watching and joining in. An incredible week out in Minnesota. Jimmy Kimmel having fun with Real America's Voice News, thinking he's doing it at the expense of them, saying we're wannabe Fox News. Showed my interview with some whacked out, angry, middle-aged Catwoman in Minnesota in my face, like the protesters were, shouting me down the minute I started asking real questions, or getting dumb answers from the left. They would come in and harass me and target us, and they got very violent with us. It was brutal. But that's what's going on. But despite all of this, we have a new year, and the economy is about to take off. A lot of good things are coming our way here. Now, you also have the problem of local county, state taxes. So it almost doesn't matter if the interest rates come down from 6.5% to 4% for someone to buy a home over the next year or two, because you still have $1,500 a month when you wake up in the morning in taxes and your homeowner's insurance. Your homeowner's insurance was $700 a year when I bought my house in 1998. Right now, my homeowner's insurance is $5,000. So you have $1,500 you have to pull out of your pocket every day you wake up. You have to put aside monthly in escrow to pay your taxes and your homeowner's insurance. So let's say you buy a $500,000 home. I bought my home for $189,000, $179,000 in 1998. And I did a purchase money mortgage. The owner held the mortgage. Those days are gone. They are gone. A $500,000 home, the average home on Long Island is probably $750,000 right now. Taxes average are probably $7,000, $8,000. But most people, if you're in a suburban neighborhood, you're paying $12,000, $15,000. How do you do it? Your overhead's $5,000 a month. Every time you wake up, you didn't eat, you didn't buy clothes, you didn't send your kids to school. You didn't pay your electric, your oil bill. Home heating oil still $3 a barrel up here in the Northeast. Diesel still at $3.50 a gallon. Doesn't go down. For some reason, gas prices go down, but diesel doesn't go down. Impacting food prices, trucking. Prices are still on their way up at the supermarket because you still have inflation at 1 or 2% going on. It's better, and it's going to get a lot better. But it's hard. But the good news is that, if you add your money in the Dow, this thing went from a year ago through the roof. The S&P 500 1 year ago was 5,800. It's like 7,000 now. What is that, 20%? It's up a little bit less in a year. The NASDAQ, I think hit like 24,000 the other day. It's at 23.5 today. It was 19,350 a year ago. That's 20%. The Dow Jones, 49,000 today. I think it was higher than that the other day, pushing 50. It was 42,000 a year ago. Think about what that did for your retirement, especially if you're a government worker in New York and you work for the MTA or the teachers union and you're making $150,000 a year to wipe the snot off a fourth grader's nose and you don't even get them to stand for the pledge or can't even tell them the correct bathroom to use, and then you get another $50,000, $70,000 in benefits on top of it. And then your pension gets invested in oil companies. They don't care about that with their green agenda. Their retirement's through the roof. If you had $800,000 in there, now you got $900,000. That's your kid's wedding. That's 2 years of college somewhere for your kid. But Trump's bad. Trump's terrible, right? So Bessent was on the ground, the Treasury Secretary, not only about the Somali fraud, but talking about the economy in Minnesota, and he's very sharp. I think we're going to get a lot of federal charges going in Minnesota and other states, because the fraud might be 10% of the federal budget. Hard to imagine. Hard to imagine, but easy to believe, because we know what a racket's going on, especially with the NGOs. So, Operation Deflect Somali Fraud is in full effect, everybody. That's what this is all about in Minnesota. They hit the jackpot, just like they hit the jackpot with George Floyd. The civil unrest that took place in this country helped swinging an election. Same thing here. I think public sentiment is turning on ICE and the president. I was talking to our chief White House correspondent at the network the other day, and we were saying how there needs to be better messaging. There's a gap. Because not everybody who, say, is pro-illegal immigration is a super radical. There's all types and sizes. And we were talking about the other day on the air in the morning, and then Carolyn Leavitt at a presser, we were saying, you know, the messaging should be more refined. Because somebody told Brian Glenn from Texas, a law enforcement guy, that Trump needs to refine the message too. And maybe the White House got the message from what we were talking about. I thought it was coincidental. But they were talking about specific charges of some of these criminals that they're rounding up. Because the perception is that they're rounding up people who are just mowing your lawn for no reason, other than that they walked across the border. And that is not the priority here. And that's not what the warrants are being written for. And if there was more cooperation in Minneapolis and Seattle and Portland and New York jails when they got arrested and didn't plea it down to lesser charges or charge them for lesser crimes and walk the violent criminals out the back door, ICE would not need to go into the residential neighborhoods. There'd be no need for it. So they want this. Mayor Fry's a jerk. Tim Walz is out of his mind. And this is what they want. They want chaos. This is taking the focus in their minds, or at least it's their attempt, off of the Somali fraud. And how 10 or 20% of the economy in Minnesota may be involved in fraudulent behavior. Minnesota, the second highest income tax in the United States, ranking 44th in taxation in the United States, meaning the tax burdens are high. New York-esque, New Jersey-esque, California-esque, Minnesota. You know? They should call it Minnesocialist. It's going to get worse, folks. I hate saying folks. That's like Obama. Hey, folks, whatever. It's so disingenuous. But I'm not. But we better buckle up, because when the weather gets nice, they're going to try to burn it down again. And I just think it's really important that the Trump administration maybe doesn't use the rhetoric and maybe just hammers home the facts every day. Every day. Put it out there every single day. Who you arrested that day and what they did in the United States and why are you deporting them? And build the fact sheet, because no matter what you tell the people on the left, they don't believe you. But pound it in, pound it in. That's what we need to do. We cannot afford to lose Congress, because this isn't about blue or red. This is about the Democratic Socialists of America who hate our country, whose leadership are anti-American, exploiting the average person who thinks they're doing good in a social justice capacity, the social justice warriors. Companies in Manhattan give you social justice warrior days off. That's how demented our society has become. You know? So we got to wake up. It's going to be a busy year I was in the Maduro arraignment last week as well in Manhattan. It was monumental. I'm an innocent man. I'm just a regular person, he says, whatever. Meanwhile, people were outside who I put on my show last week telling me that Maduro tortured his friends and kidnapped his friends and family. And he was a counter-protester, counter-protesting the stupid white protesters that are out there that don't know anything about Venezuela, which I loved. There were counter-protesters out there. Media didn't show you that part, did they? You know, but Real America's Voice News did. And there's a lot more to come. There's going to be more incidents. They're going to try to create whatever they can and sow division wherever they can. And Mayor Fry in Minneapolis is blaming ICE on the violent behavior of the protesters. But it's not true. It's not true. They're going about their business and people are interfering. It's mob rule. It's invasion of the body snatchers, passing you along like a hot potato down the route when you're identified as conservative media so they can assault you and attack you. And if you're a media out there, make sure you got security with you when you go into these crowds, because ours almost had to pull their weapons, and we're about to, because it was hairy. And thanks to people like Kevin Posobiec, who was with us on the ground from Real America's Voice, Nick Sorda. We were some of the only media on the ground out there really in the mix. There were only a few others. I'm David Zier. You're watching On the Right Side. Stay tuned for more action next week.